Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Another mystery solved. Less than an hour ago, we finally learned who began funding of that Trump dossier here in Washington. An amazing and maybe not surprising tale. We'll tell you in a minute. But first, the avalanche of propaganda continues here. You can tell when the Democratic Party's PR apparatus believes it has come up with an especially effective talking point, because suddenly you hear the exact same phrase from the lips of every media-savvy congressman and cable news hack on television, including on this show. The latest, you might have noticed, we certainly have, is opposition research. That's what Democrats are now calling the Trump dossier, that collection of lurid, unverified allegations that in some cases appears to have come straight from the Kremlin. Last month, Democrats told us that dossier was evidence of treason. It was grounds for impeachment. Well, now that it turns out that Hillary and the DNC paid for it, the whole thing is being written off as merely opposition research. Totally routine, no big deal. Move along, nothing to see here. Come on, why are you so uptight? We've heard the story 1,000 times. Right, not so fast. In fact, the Trump dossier is far from just opposition research. For almost a year, it has been the linchpin in a remarkable effort to overturn last year's election results. Information in that dossier, which in retrospect looks, frankly, very much like disinformation, flowed from Russia to the Hillary Clinton campaign and the headquarters of the Democratic Party. From there, it somehow made its way throughout the Obama administration to the FBI and various other law enforcement agencies and intel agencies as well. The Obama administration used the dossier's allegations to justify spying efforts against American citizens, including Trump associates. In other words, the entire investigation into Russia and Russia collusion, the one that has stalled our government and changed our foreign policy, all of it grows from the now discredited Trump dossier. It's hardly just a piece of opposition research. It's a history-changing document, and apparently a fraudulent one. So it's no wonder so many people are now lying about it. Maggie Haberman and Ken Vogel of the New York Times report that Democratic officials repeatedly lied to them for more than a year, claiming they had nothing to do with the dossier. Neither the Hillary Clinton campaign nor the DNC reported their payments to the firm that compiled it, as they were required to do by law. And the lying continues to this moment. According to new reports today, both Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta and ex-DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz just last month told the Senate Intel Committee behind closed doors they had no idea who funded the dossier. They didn't know of any contractual relationship between the organizations they ran and Fusion GPS, the firm that put it together. Right. Not likely, actually. The DNC and the Clinton campaign combined paid more than $9 million to the law firm Perkins Coie for legal services, and it seems likely that Fusion was receiving the lion's share of that. We can't tell you exactly how much they were receiving because Fusion GPS has resisted congressional subpoenas of its financial records. Still, it seems almost certain to be a massive payoff, multi-millions of dollars. Were Wasserman Schultz and Podesta both so detached from the campaigns they were running in a presidential year that they had no idea where millions of dollars went? That seems absurd. Meanwhile, less than an hour ago, as we told you just at the top of this, another great mystery has been solved. The identity of the funder of the original Fusion GPS opposition research on the Trump campaign. Now, we've known for a long time it was an anti-Trump Republican. Now, according to a report by the Washington Examiner's Byron York, we know it was the Washington Free Beacon. That's a website funded by hedge fund billionaire Paul Singer and founded in part by Twitter celebrity Bill Kristol. That's where it all began. And we can promise you that not a single person in Washington is surprised by that. David DeFurry is a former State Department official. He advised the Obama campaign on foreign policy, and he joins us tonight. David, thank you. I'm glad you're here because we've had many conversations about Russia over the past year, you and I, and you've expressed outrage at the collusion between the Trump people and Russia. Now that we know that the Hillary campaign colluded with Russia, took information from Russia to affect the outcome of the campaign, are you as outraged?
First of all, I never expressed outrage that there was collusion. I expressed outrage that Russia interfered in our election, which all of our intelligence agencies agree to. And I said that needs to be investigated. And if there is collusion, that's a very serious crime by the Trump campaign.
So we know that the Russians gave information through a couple of cutouts to the Hillary campaign and the Democratic National Committee to influence the election. So how is that different from what you just said?
That's not what happened.
Oh, how is that not what happened?
The news that we learned this week is that Hillary Clinton funded Fusion GPS. But we already knew that a Democratic ally had funded it. That came out in October 2016. If you look at the Mother Jones article, which first published these allegations, it was clear then that a Democratic ally had funded this. So we just now know which ally, and it was the Hillary Clinton campaign.
But what you're doing is tracing the genesis of the story. I'm asking you a factual question about what happened. Russia gave information to Steele, the former head of the Russia desk at MI6, who gave it to Fusion GPS, and then it flowed to the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC to influence the outcome of the election. So information from Russia was used to influence the outcome using Hillary as a conduit. And I'm just wondering, where's your outrage about that?
That's not accurate.
Well, how is that inaccurate exactly?
Steele was hired to do opposition research. And as part of the opposition research, he talked to lots of people, not just Russians. He talked to people in Europe. He talked to people in the U.S.
I'm certain
he found sources, which is what good intelligence agents do.
So
some of his sources were Russian.
No,
some of his sources were Russian sources.
Okay, but I didn't say every. No, but I didn't say every source was Russian. I'm merely saying what we know from the public record and what the committee is in the process of learning is that information from the Russians, and that would be people associated with the Kremlin, the Russian government, found its way to the Clinton campaign. They paid for that information, and it was designed to influence the outcome of the election. So look, I'm just holding you to the standard that you set when you said this is undermining American democracy. This is hacking of an election. Why is it not the case here?
Everyone should read the Steele dossier, and you will see there were many sources in the Steele dossier.
But that was one of them.
Not just Russians.
But,
yes, some
I'm
Russians.
not saying that it was the only one.
But also people like Carter Page, who worked for Trump, was a source.
I got it.
His lawyer Cohen was a source.
You're obscuring the point, and I think our viewers know that you're obscuring the point, and I think that you know that you're obscuring the point. Look, if it's wrong for one side to do it, it is wrong for any side to do it. You have evidence here that it happened on the Democratic side. There is no evidence that the Republican side did it. If there is, I will denounce it along with you.
You're equating two things that are not equal. It is not wrong for opposition research to be conducted and for some of the sources to be Russian.
To be the Russian government. So it's not, you don't have a problem with that.
The suspicion is that Trump engaged in collusion with the Russians. Now, let's remember one important thing.
Wait a second. Tell me, just really quick. Why did Hillary not engage? I mean, it's an honest question. Why, given what we know now, that apparently the Hillary campaign, the DNC working for the Hillary campaign, gave millions of dollars to get information from the Russians. How are they not colluding with the Russians? I'm missing this. I'm slow.
There's nothing. There's no news that suggests they gave money to the Russians. They gave money to a British former intelligence agent who went around and collected information
and paid money from
the
Russians.
We don't know that yet. We don't know what he did. Now, but let me make one important point.
You don't seem that interested in finding out.
Why do we have a special counsel investigation? We have a special counsel investigation because Trump fired the FBI director Comey. He fired the FBI director Comey because he was so worried about these allegations.
I think you're missing a few steps, and here's the key step you're missing, is that the investigation already begun. The Justice Department began investigating the ties between the Trump campaign and...
But we got a special counsel investigation.
Why did they do
when Trump fired Comey, correct?
I've been here the whole time, but the investigation was underway, and it was underway in part because of material gleaned from the Trump dossier paid for by the Hillary campaign. It's a really simple question. Well, does it bother you?
You're wrong. There were lots of reasons why the FBI started investigating.
I said in part,
including they had surveillance.
They've said this.
They had surveillance of Trump campaign officials talking to Russians.
I got it.
Does
it bother you?
But that's also why they opened an investigation. They didn't just open an investigation.
You can't have a conversation with someone who's shouting. So I'm going to lower my voice. I hope you'll do the same. We know because it has been publicly reported that the head of the FBI, Jim Comey, tried to add the Trump dossier to the January intel report from the intelligence community showing that Russia interfered in our election. So this report played a pivotal role in the investigations we're now living through. And I'm asking you a simple question. Does it bother you that a campaign document, opposition research, wound up circulating through the Obama administration, through law enforcement and intelligence agencies? How the hell did that happen?
But Tucker, you're trying to argue that all roads lead back to the Steele dossier, and that's not correct. For instance, the January intelligence report that came from our CIA, our FBI, from our State Department, that was based on their review of what happened in our campaign and their review of the data and the stealing of data from the DNC.
You and the lunatic congressman we had on last night have convinced me you guys know that there's no answer to these questions, and so you're filibustering.
That's why we have a
place
special
to
counsel.
Okay.
The special counsel will find the answers, and you should support that.
This is hurting. This is really hurting. You just proved that because you're a reasonable guy, but you're acting in an unreasonable manner, which suggests that you know this is bad. It's bad, David. We're going to find out. Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.